Whether it makes you laugh, cry, scream, or fly, there's a song for every emotion. You're listening to Mike and Priya, and they're talking about the songs that make up the soundtrack to your life. Because life is in the lyrics.
Yeah, that's great.
Welcome to Life is in the Lyrics, everyone, where we talk about the role music and lyrics play in our lives. And as you may have heard in our intro, we're joined by a special guest today.
We sure are. You may have heard a different voice in that intro, as Priya mentioned. We've got my sister-in-law, Mary, here with us. Special guest. Welcome, Mary. Welcome to the little podcast.
Thank you. I'm here because I'm a committed, dedicated listener.
Yay!
Yeah.
I kind of invited myself, to be honest with you, but
You see, folks, it doesn't take much to get onto the podcast.
It's so true.
It doesn't take much.
I know. I'm like, I'd love to say that we carefully planned this and, you know, everything was so organized and, you know, well in advance.
There's a curated list and
Yeah.
I had to apply, but no, I made it on.
Right.
Yeah.
We should make it sound a little more elite, though. I like the idea of a curated list.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah.
We're going to create one of those.
Yes.
Okay, you are going to be the inspiration of our curated list.
Absolutely. Well, thank you.
Inspiration.
It's an absolute thrill to be here. So thank you. I'm actually super flattered that I was allowed to join the studio, which is really impressive. And because I am indeed a committed and very happy listener to the podcast.
You're a little listener. That's what we call
That's
our listener.
right.
You're a little
That's
listener.
right.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, it is kind of fitting. I do think it's kind of great how this worked out because we're going to be talking about something in this episode that is related to strong women in recognition of the International Women's Month.
Yes.
And so I'm sitting here in our studio and I've got two very strong women in front of me.
Well, let's learn who Mary is.
Sure, yeah. Outside of being just my sister-in-law.
Well, I am a lawyer, a prosecutor who lives in Vancouver. I lived in Toronto until I was 20-something. Then I went out to Vancouver, saw that palm trees grow in Canada. They really do, people. And decided I can't leave. So I stayed there, became a lawyer, met my husband, and we now have a 25-year-old. But I love to come back to Toronto and visit. I love the city. I love my family. Yeah, so
that's why you're here?
Yeah. And funnily enough, I've been listening to the podcast. I know Mike, of course, as a relative, but I did not know Priya, and I've been calling her my sister from another mother because it turns out we have a lot of similarities, some differences, but a lot of similarities.
All right. Well, we're going to see how that plays out in today's episode. And I just think it's super cool that we have a crown attorney with us today. I just like the way that sounds. It sounds pretty impressive.
Well, Priya likes to wear the crown.
I do. I'm wearing my tiara right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, usually, Mary, as you know, as a listener in our format, we kind of like have a bit of banter. You know, how was your week? What's going on? Do we need to do that? Should we get right into it?
Let's just roll right along.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Because we are halfway through Women's History Month, or perhaps we should call it Women's Herstory Month. That might be more appropriate. And this week it's all about the ladies. Well, two ladies, to be more specific.
That's correct. We're talking about two artists from different genres, different generations, who have very different personalities and approaches to the media, their public persona, their image.
Now, they share in common that they both come from deeply religious families, both launched their hugely successful careers in music, but then crossed over into starring in films. And both are icons who have paved the way for women in music.
One is a unproblematic, one could say, country royalty. Yippee-ki-yay.
Mother, okay.
I'm just going to let people know I have a mic on and it's wireless and I think it's rubbing against my chin. So I'm going to move it over here and see if that helps.
Which one of your chins is it rubbing against?
Oh, bitch.
Oh!
Just got to burn.
I'm keeping my scarf on for the record. And there's more about that because these icons may participate in something that I thinking about.
Okay,
Anyway.
okay. So, yeah, one is an unproblematic country royalty who is beloved by people on both sides of the political spectrum, while the other is the queen of pop and has been the subject of so much controversy. So one very controversial, although I think both have their controversy. So, and we might be getting into that.
Okay, let's get into that.
Yeah.
These are two powerful women who've used their sexuality and physical appearance, their bodies, as weapons or tools with which to direct and shape their careers.
In culture and in industry, like the music industry and basically society in general just tries to control women's image. And these two women have taken different approaches in the way they've crafted their image, crafted their careers, and taken control and power.
Yeah.
So if you don't know who we're talking about the Queen Dolly Parton and the other Queen Madonna.
Okay. All rise, except for us, because we've got headphones on. The court of the little podcast is now in session with the less than honorable judges, Mike and myself, Priya, presiding over the case of female artists versus the goddamn double standard.
Yes. Okay. I don't think we're supposed to swear in court.
Well, then we're off to a fucking bad start.
Jesus.
Okay.
Okay. So let's get into it then. I think I'll just let the little listeners know these two women I'm in the room with right now, they can talk really good. So this may be the last you hear of my voice.
No, we need to. And I know you've said, actually, even when we were talking about this theme, that you don't know how much you'd have to contribute as we're talking about women and their bodies and their sexuality. But I think it's really interesting to get outside perspectives. So definitely pipe in when you got something good to say.
Thanks.
If you have
She's
anything to
giving
say.
me permission. Did you see that?
I give you permission. I'm
Give
from
him a
Queen
hall
1
pass.
and Queen 2
Yeah, Queen
and
one.
Queen
Yeah.
3.
Yeah, that's true.
You're the third
I am a bit
queen.
of a queen. I actually do have things to say, but when we were talking about this, I was thinking, is it appropriate when I'm sitting in a room with two women, strong women, successful women, what do I have to say to contribute to that conversation? Yeah, I'll have things to say. I've got opinions about things, but that's not really what this should be about. This should be about you guys talking about.
I appreciate that is... No, I'm serious. I appreciate that that's the opinion you're coming in with. It reminds me of the movie or the book, if either of you have seen or read, Women Talking.
Yes, of course. Yeah, Miriam
Okay.
Taves.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that book and
Such a
I
good
loved
book.
that movie.
Yeah.
And it was a really interesting movie because it's all these women gathered talking about a situation that has happened in their very remote Mennonite community, but none of them are literate. So they have one guy there who is there to just transcribe everything that happens in the discussion. And they only ask him to speak at few times. So he's sitting there and I'm sure he has opinions to say on everything. But he doesn't offer them. So I feel like you're kind of taking that role and I appreciate that, but we definitely do want to hear from you.
Okay.
Don't you think so?
Absolutely. And actually, I think both of these women may have taken control, but they still, in my view, my thesis would be tailored their careers still to appeal to a male audience as well as a female audience. So, and I was curious why you chose Dolly Parton. I get Madonna, more on that, who I absolutely love and have loved since, I mean, she's only a few years older than me. But
She's
Dolly.
like 76 or something.
No, she's not.
No,
You're-
No,
she's 68.
She's 68.
Yeah.
Dolly Parton?
No, Madonna.
Madonna.
who
Oh,
I
okay,
love.
okay,
Like I grew
sorry,
up
yeah.
with Madonna.
Right,
Dolly,
yeah.
though, I gotta wonder about Dolly. To be honest with you,
So what do you mean by that? You got to wonder about that in what regard?
she strikes me as a career woman driven to people pleasing. Quite frankly, now to what extent did she have to conform maybe to be successful? I just don't know enough about her. The one thing about Dolly Parton I've always really admired is she wrote and refused to sell that
I Will Always
amazing
Love
I
You.
Will Always
Yeah.
Love You. And that I love that about her. Elvis was
Yes.
begging her for
Yes.
it, etc. She made millions of dollars. I've always admired that, but that's practically all I know about her, other than 9 to 5 and massive boobs, tiny waist, lots of rhinestones. And so I always think of her as more of a people pleaser. I don't
Right.
actually think of her as being a real
Savvy.
or a role model. I don't.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So here's the reason because I was the one who sort of suggested to Mike, well, why don't we look at these two women? Because they're both very feminine and sexualized in a way, in their own ways, in their appearance. Now, Dolly, I find Dolly fascinating because she had these. First of all, I'm going to admit that I didn't realize she had implants.
Oh yeah. Priya actually thought her boobs were natural.
I'm
And
so
I was
embarrassed
like,
to say
Well,
that.
whoever created Barbie thought the same thing. So you're
Right.
not
Yeah.
incomplete.
Right.
You're not incomplete.
But because she did have like, she had all these body image issues when she was growing up, and she had boobs. It's not like she had small boobs.
yeah, hers, yeah.
She had pretty impressive sized breasts, but then she got them
Enhanced.
greatly enhanced. And she said that she did that because when she was a kid, there was a, what did she say? What'd she call her? The town tramp that she just thought was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen, and had this huge, beautiful hair and this tiny waist. And so she said, when I grow up, that's how I want to look. And she made that happen. But she never uses her sexuality in her music, in her lyrics, in the way she moves about in the world or in the industry. It's never sexualized her as an artist, which is in complete opposition to Madonna, where everything she does is hypersexualized. So that's why I thought that they would be two interesting extreme ends of a spectrum of women who've really used their bodies and their sexuality, but in very different ways, because Dolly won't even swear in her lyrics,
Yeah.
I mean, she wanted to look like a tramp. That's really depressing.
Yes,
like
but I
that's
think
her
when
role model.
Right.
That's just so depressing.
Fair enough, but she was also in a very, very like a religious family, right? Her father was a pastor, or whatever they call them in that part of the States, but very religious. And she was a kid. I don't think she even knew what the town tramp meant. She just saw this beautiful woman that everybody was looking at and, thought, that's what I want to be. I want to have all the eyes on me. But I do appreciate that she's never been crass about her sexuality and the way she looks.
Her presentation can be perceived as a bit
Trashy, maybe. Trashy, but not
trashy.
crass.
Yeah.
Because she never...
She's not grabbing her crotch or wearing,
Cone bras. She's not
or
wearing
anything.
cone bras. Well, she also was married for like her husband who just died. They were married for 60
Something like that.
Yeah. And he was never
in the picture.
publicly.
100% behind her and supportive of her. And then just the little bit of research I did, it was interesting to me to see how much of her money has gone to charity. I think that's so
Huge
interesting.
amount.
It's so interesting. So she obviously valued her success, wanted to share it.
Yeah.
Or values, sorry.
Yeah. The thing that strikes me that's so different between the two of them is that they kind of liberated themselves and their womanhood in different ways. Like Madonna really was, I'm a woman and I have sexual desires just like everybody else, and I'm not embarrassed or ashamed to talk about it, sell it, promote it. Whereas Dolly, it seems to me, she's taken on this persona. Like it's a drag getup, right? Like this is the question would be, okay, this is who she is, but who is she when she's not dressed in drag?
Right.
Is there a different Dolly, and what would that person be like?
Well, I think that the philanthropy, a lot of that is at the heart of who she is as a person. And not just the philanthropy, but also I'm interested to talk about the controversy, because I think we can all agree that Madonna is a very controversial figure. She always has been, and she stokes controversy, right? From the very beginning, in her wedding dress, writhing around on the stage of the Grammys, she was courting controversy. And good on her, because it launched a career that has spanned decades. But Dolly shies away from controversy. She's not political. She's very apolitical, although interestingly that she declined the Medal of Honor that was offered to her by Trump twice.
Yeah.
She had excuses both times, but she declined. And interesting also that she donated $1 million to the development of the Moderna vaccine. So some people might think because she comes from Bible Belt territory that she's super conservative or whatever, or Republican. But she is just she talks about how I have as many fans that are conservatives Republicans as I have that are Democrats, and I don't want to offend anybody. And so she really just is about peace and love, and she tries not to get involved in controversy. Whereas Madonna, I feel like she welcomes it. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that either. I'm just saying that that's two different approaches.
Well, Dolly, I mean, the fact that we don't know much about her, I would say I don't know much about her. Whereas Madonna, I feel she's been trying to let us know everything about her. That's her career. I mean, I love Madonna. I love Madonna's music. She's an incredible dancer, but I actually don't love her addiction to the spotlight. I mean, that's the criticism of Madonna. I was actually just coincidentally, I happened to be listening to the Audible version of Britney Spears biography, autobiography. It's really good. I'm at the chapter where she and Madonna are at the VMA Awards, and she's
Where they
talking
kissed?
where the kiss.
With Christina Aguilera? Was it the three-way kiss?
Yes.
No, this is a two-way. This is the original two-way kiss. I don't think
Christina Aguilera also kissed Madonna in that performance, and it never gets mentioned. It's always the Britney Madonna kiss.
Well, Britney's taking credit in her book for being the one. She said in the practices they were only air kisses. But anyway, she's talking about how Madonna tried to mentor her, and she wished she'd listened to Madonna more about being in control of her own career or doing her own thing. So even whenever year that was, the point being that Madonna did want to help female, but Britney's basically saying, I wasn't receptive to it. I was too young, too ignorant. I kind of think that Madonna is what allowed Taylor Swift to become the person she is.
Interesting. Talk more.
Because Madonna was the super... But, well, first of all, I hate to tell you both, I don't like Taylor Swift.
Oh!
And end of podcast.
Yeah. Thanks for being here, Mary.
No, don't drag me out. I beg of you. Where did those huge burly people come from?
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's a trap door.
That's right. Go on.
Yeah.
I barely know her music. The few songs I've listened to, I have not liked. This whole tour is insane to me. It makes no sense why people are willing to spend that amount of money. None. And I actually don't think she's such a great role model running around in her like little cutesy short shorts and double Spanx and her high heels. It's like I don't see Taylor Swift as being a role model at all for young girls. Maybe these friendship bracelets make up for it. But anyway, my point being that Madonna started the mega tour. Madonna really, like a little bit of Michael Jackson, but she went Blonde Ambition was a whole other level. And she also started a little bit of the, girl crush or whatever. Like just people want to be, if only I could be as cool as Madonna, if only I could be as fit as Madonna. And her FU attitude about everything was something like, imagine if you just didn't care that much.
But I feel like, okay, yes, I agree with all of that. But I kind of feel like Cher did that before Madonna.
Yeah, no, and Cher, interestingly enough, I'm listening to her Audible book as well.
Okay.
Both Cher and Britney, both of whom apparently I guess are too big to read most of their own books. They sort of read a little bits of each chapter and then they leave it to other people.
Right.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
It's terrible. Again, I think Cher is actually an interesting example. I think Taylor Swift owes a lot to Madonna. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I think probably a lot of female artists would admit that Madonna paved the way for them to have the success that they have. I remember seeing some interview with Pink online where she was being interviewed by somebody and they had asked her opinion of Madonna's face. And Pink's response was like, why the fuck are you asking me about Madonna's face? We should be talking about how she was a badass that paved the way and allowed female artists like myself to have successful careers. That's what's important. What her face looks like is, she's like, I've got no opinion about that.
Right. Well, that's interesting too, because for instance, Britney Spears is saying, and remember at the time, the controversy, same with Taylor Swift. How come you're busy asking me like, when did I lose my virginity? Are your breasts real? That's always, female musicians arguably always have that challenge.
Well, females in general. But
Females
yeah,
in general, except I think that quite frankly, I think Madonna's face is on the table a little bit because, and both these women, as I alluded to early on, may be icons and maybe role models, but they are using a lot of artificial shit to look the way they look. And why does Madonna want to look the way she looks? And see, Mike knows I'm quite obsessed right now with, because first of all,
I love your scarf, Mary.
Because I wear scarves all the time, because I have a turkey neck, and because women my age, half the women I know now are getting fillers and this,
Right.
and they're starting to look
half
weird.
half your age. Women in
Yeah,
their
no, I know.
mid
And
to late 20s are starting to
right.
get Botox and
I
like
know. I'm envious. I wish I had the guts, quite frankly, to do something about my face. But
But
what bothers me is that they are buying into that.
that the Dolly and Madonna, you mean, or
Yes.
that other women?
Yes.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, women generally have,
Mm-hmm.
and why, if we have these strong women who are known for their music, in theory,
Mm-hmm.
that means obviously their appearance is a big part of their music, and it shouldn't be.
okay, go ahead, Priya.
no, you were going to say something.
Well, I was just gonna. I mean, there's a question about the buy-in, but there's also for me a question about the control over it. It's like the choice to do what they do because of the other elements. It's not like they're right on Desperate Housewives.
Well, you're saying their marketability truly depends on how they look and keeping their youthfulness, whereas
Well, there's that, but there's also that they're not just doing it because they're selling records. They're doing it because they understand as businesswomen that this is an element that gets attention, and it's a lever for them to be able to do all the other things as well. Versus women who buy into that look strictly for vanity, strictly for attention. That isn't really contributing to anything other than them being pretty and a celebrity. I think they're leveraging those things for different purposes, is my view.
So here's something that Dolly has said on her appearance. When she adopted this specific look, was in sort of the late 60s, early 70s. And there was an article I was reading where it said it took a lot of strength of character back in that era when record label execs wanted her to tone down her look. But she said, quote, "Everything I do, whether it's my personality, how I conduct myself in business, or whatever, if I do it my way, according to what I understand and believe, there's a strength in that. You can think I can stand by this. I can live by this. I would just say, I think I have something that we can all make money off of and get over the fact that I'm a girl here because my mind is on something else." So she had a very specific career trajectory in her mind. She was like, this is going to be my persona because I know we can all make a lot of money off this. And she stuck by it. I really just admire her for having that strength of character in a time period where it was not easy to do that, where women had, fairly recently even got the ability to vote. And some of her lyrics back as early as like 1967 were quite feminine, even though she shies away from the term feminist. She really doesn't like to be called a feminist. But her lyrics have shown that she is very much a believer in equality. So her one of her singles called Dumb Blonde from 1967, some of her lyrics say, "When you left, you thought I'd sit and you thought I'd wait and you thought I'd cry. You called me a dumb blonde. And somehow I lived through it. And if there's one thing this blonde has learned, blondes have more fun." So she's just like, you can call me whatever you want.
Interesting.
But I'm going to live my own life my way.
She did have quite a few songs that were very strong, women focused, and had been taken on as anthems for
Women's movement.
Women's movement.
I mean, it's like Helen Reddy. Did you watch the Helen Reddy movie they had on Netflix?
No.
So interesting.
Is that the I Am Woman, Let Me Roar?
Yes, and it's actually a great movie, and her story is really quite good. But anyway.
So I'm interested to hear what do you like about Madonna? What else do you like about Madonna? Why do you gravitate towards her?
It's interesting because one of the things I was noting as I listened through your podcast is that so much of what you're talking about each week is music that has invoked some kind of memory. Either it's a time of your life or it's a phase you were going through or something. And so I was thinking about Madonna and I thought, she's been with me for every time in my life.
Right.
But interestingly, I don't have a ton of memories related to her. She's not an evocative performer in that sense, but she is just fun. Like I have memories of listening to Borderline, Like a Prayer, all those songs. It's having fun and dancing and whereas other music I listened to literally back to, oh yeah, that was on my Walkman, right? During high school. That tape never popped out, right?
Did you ever dress like Madonna? Like adopt any of her?
Oh yeah, totally. Absolutely.
Because it was the look. It was her or Cyndi Lauper. Those were the two looks
and
of
Boy
the
George. We were all like, that was
fair enough.
We were all like, and I loved Desperately Seeking Susan. I absolutely loved that movie.
Yeah.
So what was her appeal for you? But like, if you can go back to that period.
Exactly. I would say it was just fun dance music. I actually didn't take a lot of value from them. I'm walking away from my dad, making my own decisions. I actually don't think of Madonna as being a singer who's spoken to me. I just think it's always been just good fun. And constantly talking about her. I mean, the whole the documentary, the stupid coffee table book, her just Evita. I loved Evita. I thought she was so good, and she was determined to do that. She had to lobby. I thought it was great that she, she could probably have frozen her eggs, but she decided, no, I'm just going to have a baby, right? And she did it with
Carlos
Leon, right? So I liked that about her, that she had a vision of just what she wanted to do. I think she still is a manipulator, and I know who knows what's the difference between an influencer and a manipulator. I don't really know. I think she's more a manipulator. And I do find, I know we shouldn't talk about women and their appearance, but I've been listening to Bruce Springsteen for just as long there. John, shout out to Bruce Springsteen. I've been listening to Bruce for just as long, and I don't see him having to do any dramatic facial reconstruction to make himself relevant still.
But isn't that the double standard?
But I think here's somebody who could have broken the double standard, and that's what makes me so frustrated. Like, I know Pink, you said it was asked about Madonna's face. She's making us ask, why on earth do you want to look that way? Right. It's weird. Like, she hasn't even done natural adjustments, which apparently is the term my friends are calling them now. She's actually done a high-level facial reconstruction. Yeah. So I've actually bugged about it. Like, couldn't you?
Are you?
Yeah.
I'm not picking that up at all.
Well, that's another interesting way in which Dolly and Madonna are slightly different, right? Because Madonna has, as you say, like, if you look at a picture of her today from even 10 years ago, it doesn't look like it's the same person. It's not but Dolly's look has relatively stayed the same, and she's very funny. She's always self-deprecating about the amount of surgery or little procedures she's had done. She says things like, if I see something falling, I'll have a nip, tuck, pulled or sucked. Like, she'll say things like that, but in a cutesy way. And she does these little procedures to maintain the way she looks. But she still looks the same if you look at her over the last sort of 30 years. It looks like this person has grown older, looking amazingly, but still has grown older and is the same person. But I mean, we could go back to Cher too, in terms of Cher looks the same now as she did 40 years ago. She hasn't had facial reconstruction surgery, but it's a little creepy.
It's pretty
her face
weird.
has not changed.
No, it's changed. It's
a plastic
looking
face,
now.
right?
Yeah.
Should it matter?
Should it matter? Jane Fonda at one point even said, "I wish I hadn't started down this path." But
Courtney Cox has talked about that too. How she went too
right,
far.
Right. Anyway, it shouldn't matter, and it bugs me that it matters.
And why does it matter?
It bugs me that they're doing it, because that to me tells me it still matters to them, and are they really doing it just for themselves? I don't know.
But again, like, what does that matter? Whether they're doing it for themselves or they're doing it to ensure that they have the attention that they need to be able to then continue to accomplish the good things that they're doing.
There's no way they wouldn't have the same attention. Like that.
Exactly.
At that level of success, they don't need it for their careers. So why are they doing it? Why is it my business why they're doing it? It's not. But if we're talking about, icons, role models, like, it will be very interesting to see how Taylor Swift ages, quite frankly. Should it matter? I mean, and then poor Tom Cruise gets fillers, and it's like everybody just laughs.
Yeah, but that's because he's an asshole.
That's another topic.
Yeah.
Well, I think, it's a good question of whether it matters or not. And I feel like aging is hard, regardless, right? But it's harder when you're in the public eye. And when you're used to having been in the public eye for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, what must it feel like to lose that attention, right? Because that's what you've become kind of that's become associated with your whole life.
Well, and I think it would also, and I don't know if we've said this before, but I think it also would be weird to be immortalized in these different times in your life. I mean, we have photos of each other, right, throughout the years. But if you're in the public eye, I always think of Friends because it's still so popular, those reruns. And these actors, when they had that reunion, it was like, wow.
Yeah.
But I think, I do think it would be, I agree with you, Priya. I think it'd be weird. It would be challenging to be in the public eye and, in my view, to be immortalized that way. But I think, if we're going to try and relate this to our own lives, I am always commenting about how old I am, how bald I am, how fat I am. I'm always picking apart my own look. I'm definitely aware that I'm aging and I look very different. And so is it different for us than it is for celebrities?
Well, I think, Priya, you said, I can't imagine how awful it would be to be a celebrity when, in fact, it really should be about your craft.
Right.
And I think that Madonna never made it just about her craft. I mean, we haven't even talked about what are her top 10 songs. Vogue.
It would be hard to pick top 10 for Madonna.
Okay.
I feel like I could pick top 20. She's had so many. But Like a Prayer, Like a Virgin, Get Into the Groove, Papa Don't Preach. That's only from her first album.
That's what I was going to say.
Those are in the early career.
That's the Blue album. So what are her more recent ones?
There's quite a few songs that are about empowerment. That Madonna had. And I did this little search online in my intense research that I do. And full transparency, I was a huge fan of Madonna when I was younger.
Same.
I'm still a fan of the older, but I kind of fell off the Madonna bandwagon around Hard Candy, that album. And that came out in 2008.
It wasn't very good.
Hard Candy was good, but then it just kind of I just felt uncomfortable with how I was responding to her persistence of maintaining relevancy. And it just felt kind of weird to me.
Didn't we go to her concert together?
We did.
Yeah.
And you got really pissed off because one of the big screens weren't working. And she left our seat. And she's like, I'm going to complain. And she did. Priya went and she complained to them.
I have no memory of that.
You were so pissed.
But the word you just used, Mike, relevancy is so interesting because you're a musician. Your relevancy should be your music.
I know.
So, but she's never been just about her music.
No.
Ever.
Right.
That's what's so fantastic.
Her music, her music and her image are intertwined. There's no separating them. And I think that's where it becomes more challenging, I would imagine, as you grow older, because you've never been a private person. She has never been a private person, whereas some people, when they're not on tour, they might just try to go about leading their lives quietly, but that's never been her style. She's always been in the public eye, and so she probably could never just walk around the world without people saying, "Oh my God, aren't you Madonna?" There's no way for her to now separate herself
today
from
they
that.
would not say that because she doesn't look like Madonna.
Well, but she's, usually when she goes out in public, she's so adorned with all kinds of jewels and lace. And
she looked so beautiful. Madonna's always been a beautiful woman, but she looked so beautiful, gorgeous. She was aging beautifully. So I think it's just sort of too bad that she didn't like it.
I agree. I just think it's too bad that society makes it so that you can't like it. It's very difficult. You see men like Richard Gere and all these older...
Bruce Springsteen.
Well, Mick Jagger, when he was... What was he on recently? And I was looking at him and I was thinking, has he had work done? I'm trying to figure it out.
But
again,
never... It's just not the same.
No, totally.
We do not judge men the same
Except
way.
for Tom Cruise.
Aging men. But even Tom Cruise. He might get a little bit of jabs here and there, but I haven't heard a lot of...
When he had all that work done, I remember there being the backlash.
Yeah,
he looked kind of weird.
But it is true, but it's a beauty model, whereas older men, everybody thinks it's...
Silver fox, you know? But if a woman has gray hairs, it's like, oh, she looks old. So there is that double standard that it's just...
Or Jodie Foster has and Annette Bening That movie Nyad,
Yeah.
did you
Helen
see that?
Mirren?
It looks like neither of them have done anything, and they
Yeah.
look their age, and they look gorgeous, and they're amazing actresses. So
All right. Well, there's two Madonna songs and lyrics that I
Oh, I can't wait to
pulled.
see if they're the same as any of the ones I pulled.
All right. One of them is Jump,
Okay, no.
and that was from Confessions on the Dance Floor in 2005. And lyrics, so the song starts with, I haven't got much time to waste. It's time to make my way. I'm not afraid of what I'll face, but I'm afraid to stay. I'm going down my own road and I can make it alone. I'll work and no fighting and I'll find a place of my own. And so, she's starting this song off by saying basically, I don't need your help. I'm going to do this on my own.
Yep.
And so there's that that female empowerment right off the bat. You're either with me or you're not, but I actually don't care. I'm doing this anyways. And it's really like there's not much to this song. There's only 2 verses, and the rest are get ready to jump.
I don't know.
You don't know that song?
I don't know it.
Well, there was this other song that came up, and I had not heard this song at all, called Veni Vidi Vici. And Veni Vidi Vici means I came, I saw, I conquered. Yeah. Oh, look at you.
I ain't just a pretty face.
Wow.
So have you heard
I
this
told
song?
you I'm very intelligent. I told you that from the
Yes,
very
you told everybody that.
How many languages? 7 languages. She speaks 7 languages.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Gibberish.
Bitchiness.
Yeah. Midnight calls when she's high-ish.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but have you heard this song?
Nope.
Yeah, so this came out in 2015, and this was on her Rebel Heart album. And again, I kind of fell off the bandwagon there. But some great lyrics in this song. It's a song that she wrote about a reflection of her life and what it took for her to get here. So she's like, seems like yesterday I was a baby on the street. I took a holiday. I was stepping to the beat. I had to pay my rent on the Lower East Side. I threw my tag around. Let B-boys take me for a ride. I started writing songs. I kind of got into the groove. They tried to criticize my every single move. But then I realized I had nothing left to lose. It took me by surprise when I became the news. And
That's a great song.
That's a great lyric.
and so,
yeah.
after...
and those are how many of her titles are in there. In the Groove. She's named a bunch of her
Yeah.
titles.
Yeah.
That's really clever and interesting.
So we'll play that after the episode so we can listen to it. And then, of course, Express Yourself.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right?
That was
I mean,
such a good song.
That song...
Such a good song.
So you had said earlier, Mary, that, Madonna's music was fun, but do you not think a little bit that some of that was speaking to some part of you?
Maybe, but my love of Madonna's music does not resonate
With the lyrics
or
the content
or the same kind of memory trigger thing, which interestingly is I Will Always Love You is a song I just have such strong memories from having seen that movie and then falling in love with the song and then later learning the backstory and then so funnily enough, that's probably the only Dolly song I know, other than 9 to 5, of course. Which,
Now, do you know the origin of that song, I Will Always Love You?
yes, it was her manager, or her agent.
was her-
She was breaking up with
Well,
a
it was-
professional relationship.
Yes, she was on the Porter Wagoner show. So that was how
Right.
she started off her career. And so it was after, I think she was on that show for like a decade and they decided to part ways. And she wrote that about him and leaving the show. So it wasn't about a romantic love, which I think is even more beautiful about it because you can relate it to different things.
And it's interesting, too, that she, as I understand it, she didn't sell it to Elvis
Yeah.
That's right.
because she hated Colonel Parker. So there's some story there
Well, there was that, but also they wanted 50%
of the royalties.
of the royalties,
But
and
it
she
may-
was like,
And maybe
absolutely
that's why
not.
she hated
Yeah.
Colonel Parker.
Okay, what else do we got here? What else?
Well,
Oh,
I
Madonna. Oh, sorry.
want to. You were saying something about Madonna. So here's something that I wonder if this is going to alter our perception of Madonna's taking control of her sexuality. Because I did not know this until I read this. One night when returning from rehearsal, a pair of men held her at knife point. Did you know this before?
I did, yeah.
Okay, I did not know this. So they held her at knife point and forced her to perform fellatio on them. She said she found that incident to be, quote, a taste of my weakness. It showed me that I still could not save myself in spite of all the strong girl show. I could never forget it. That,
Wow,
to
when
me-
was that? I've never heard that
That
before.
was when she was
early
young.
on.
She was in
That
her
was early
20s
on.
in New York.
I did not know that. That's awful.
But that does, to me, reframe Madonna's career for me, because now it's like, oh, I understand it. You wanted to be in a position where you would never be the victim of somebody using your sexuality or your sex, your gender against you.
Yes.
And so she flipped the script. And I kind of dig that.
Yeah, no, that's...
No, she's very
totally
impressive.
different,
And
yeah.
and her, I mean, I touched on earlier about her becoming a mother. I think it's interesting too. She's got a family. She's adopted a couple kids. Her whole involvement with Malawi. That's really impressive.
Yeah. She is a huge philanthropist. Both these
Both
women
they
are huge philanthropists.
They really are, yeah.
And I think that's also super cool about them both, regardless of what we think about, how they've decided to
Yeah.
use their image, their bodies.
Well, and yeah, I think it's also important to point out that we're talking about our opinions based on our knowledge, right? There could be all kinds of things that we don't know. I mean, Madonna did that documentary about Malawi, but I can't say, other than hearing that she adopted children, that she makes a big deal about her philanthropic activity. I don't get the impression that she's constantly banging on about like all the good that she's doing.
And neither
that
is
way.
Dolly. They do things quietly.
Yes.
But they do them, and I think that's cooler than
Honorable.
having to sort of
Yeah.
shout from the rooftops of what you're doing for the world.
But do you think Dolly Parton's having a moment? I mean, that was kind of...
I think
And
definitely.
why? And so
Yeah.
why is my question. Because to me, she's just always been there.
She has
kind of the
always been there.
same, kind
But
of the...
she's doing all these like songs with like Beyonce
Sabrina
and
Carpenter.
Sabrina Carpenter and
Yeah.
God.
and some other.
I think she did one with Post Malone on his new
Yeah,
album.
she did one with Post Malone.
Yeah.
But she did one recently with a
She's
black
like
artist.
the RBG now of... RBG was everywhere. Now it's Dolly
She's
Parton. I
100%
guess.
everywhere, yeah. And she kind of like is
RBG?
admired by
Ruth
Bader
Bader
Ginsburg.
Ginsburg was
Oh.
suddenly like doing everything everywhere.
Okay.
Everybody wants a piece of Dolly.
Yeah,
There's a lot of
everybody
Dolly
wants a
to
piece
go
of Dolly.
around.
There's- Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of Dolly to go around, and we love her for it. But I do also really think it's funny that when she did the version of Please, Please, Please with Sabrina Carpenter, she had 4 rules, but it was definitely no swearing, no sexual lyrics. So Sabrina had to adjust some of the lyrics. And that is exactly who she is. She's like, I will do duets with any current artist, anyone who asks me, but I won't change who I am for those songs. Well, where do we go from here? I do want to just mention one more lyric from Dolly Parton way back in 1968. She wrote a song called Just Because I'm a Woman. Did you hear about this one? Okay,
That was on mine.
She wrote this one in response to her then relatively new husband asking her out of the blue if she had ever been with a man before they'd married. And she was just like, well, what does it matter? And that to her showed the double standard of the importance of women being virgins before they married, but men could have had whatever experience they had. And so the lyric that I isolated was, just let me tell you this, then we'll both know where we stand. My mistakes are no worse than yours just because I'm a woman. Back in 1968, she was talking about the double standards. And a lot of radio stations wouldn't play it because of that.
Wow.
It's interesting. It's interesting, too, that she was married her whole career.
Yeah.
Because that did kind of gut the opportunity to be inquiring about her private life.
There's actually stuff written about that. The way she got that part on that TV show was the previous female person on that show got married, and so she resigned. But that was actually what happened back then. Your job as a good Southern woman or girl, because you were a girl until you got married, and then you were classified as a woman. You could not be a woman, regardless of your age, if you weren't married. So Dolly got that part, but then when she was in Nashville and she was getting a sense of the music industry, she realized very quickly that if she got married, that would take care of the transition from girl to woman, so she'd get that respect. And by intentionally keeping him out of the spotlight, that also allowed her independence and not to be defined by being married. So it seemed like she really played those two cards.
But she didn't have to resign from the TV show when she got married.
I don't know
No,
what the
'cause
timing was.
She did not leave that show until the mid 70s.
Okay, so no, she didn't. No.
But I think that just goes to show again that her public image was like her very
Very
drag
crafted.
image was a very public persona.
Yeah, it was
And that's
crafted
why-
very sharply.
Sharply, and this is who I am when I'm on stage. And she talks about like I wasn't a natural beauty, but this is how I wanted to look as a performer. And so I made myself look like that with these crazy wigs and everything. But her personal life was personal and it was very private, and she never wanted it to become part of her career.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Both of them in the end both Madonna and Dolly were strategic.
Yes, that's a
Right?
good word.
They really were. And I guess it's to their credit that apparently they were able to fulfill the strategies that they wanted to pursue.
Yeah.
We don't know totally. Maybe there were changes or diversions or digressions, whatever. But fundamentally, they strike me as being strategic career women who were successful in a time when it was potentially hard to be.
And who really did change the way female artists could present themselves in the world, because we would not have had Katy Perry, Sabrina Carpenter, Christina Aguilera, any of the female artists now, Taylor Swift. Yeah, we wouldn't have had any of them if Madonna had not paved the way.
think
And
that's true.
I would say that we would not have had Madonna if Dolly Parton had not paved the way of saying like, I may look a certain way, but I'm not dumb. I'm taking charge of my career, and you can say whatever you want to say about me, but I know exactly what I'm doing.
All right, well, why don't we wrap this up? And so as we do that, throughout this episode, you've mentioned a few songs, Mary. Definitely with Dolly Parton, I Will Always Love You.
Always love
Yeah.
that song.
Yeah.
Any other songs from these artists, or any other strong female artists that rise to the top for you?
I wish I'd thought more about what my favorite Madonna song is. I don't know why I didn't think of that. I think it's got to be Like a Prayer. I just love that song.
That is my favorite karaoke song to perform.
Yeah, see, you too.
Yeah,
Like sisters from another
I
mister.
know.
I'm telling you. I'm telling you. What about you? Do you have a favorite from either of these?
Favorite Madonna?
Both.
Or both? I think for me, Dolly Parton, Islands in the Stream definitely brings back lots of memories.
Yeah.
I do.
Oh
the
my
stream.
God.
Kenny Rogers.
Okay, just a moment. Ever since it's become the Beckham song, right? That,
What?
Oh, yeah, that's now belongs to Posh and David Beckham.
Really?
Oh, yeah, they do this whole, it's actually, I can't believe you haven't seen it.
No.
It's super cute. They
Okay.
did it for their Netflix special. They post it. They have a little dance they do to it.
Oh
It's
my
really
God.
That's
Okay.
so sweet.
I didn't know that,
Really
but
cute.
I'll look that up. Okay. So Islands in the Stream for Dolly Parton. And for Madonna, I'm going to say Into the Groove. I freaking love that song. Even now, I love that song.
Yeah.
Boy, you
Boy,
got to prove your love to me. Yeah.
Borderline is awesome.
Yeah, there's so
so many.
but we're gonna do an episode on the 80s because 80s music is just
You
like,
can't just do one episode
yeah,
on the 80s.
Yeah.
Don't you
Like,
think
it'll
that's
have to
because
be
of
a
our
series.
It is.
age that we love the 80s so much?
I think we could do a series of episodes on the 80s talking about how people hate the 80s music. And there's a lot to hate because there are some really dumb songs. But then when you think of Madonna, Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, the Police,
Okay.
some amazing artists that
That's
came up in
foreshadowing.
that.
That's foreshadowing. Well,
It's like,
and
no.
the 80s are
Yeah.
having a resurgence. I put on a song, or Will put on a song the other day, and I was singing along. He's like, "How do you know this song?" I go, excuse me.
Yeah, this
I
is
knew
from
this
my-
song
Lived that.
first.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. And what about you, Priya?
For me,
songs?
Well, with Madonna, it is impossible to choose. Like I said, I could pick probably 20 songs. But Express Yourself is a great one. And I really do love the lyrics of that. I love Material Girl, too. But,
yeah.
And what was her slow song?
Crazy
for
for
You.
you.
That just takes me back to high school dances in
Yeah.
such a big way. And for Dolly, I love Jolene. I love
yeah.
that song. Of course, I Will Always Love You, although I identify that more as a Whitney song. And I also love 9 to 5. That's a hard song not to groove to.
Great.
Yeah.
Jolene, I forgot about Jolene.
Well, I think that's it. Mary, how was your, what would you
I
say
give you
about
5 stars out of 5 stars.
Yay!
Your Uber rating.
Yeah.
Your Uber, music Uber rating.
this? Yeah. Would you come back? No pressure.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you, as one of your listeners, thank you for keeping us entertained and teaching us about how life is in the lyrics.
All right, great.
Well, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to have you and to meet you. And with that, folks, we rest our case, but we would love to hear from you.
Yes, you can slide into our DMs. That's on Instagram at That Little Podcast, or shoot us an email at lifeisinthelyrics@gmail.com. And that's it. Thanks, little listeners. We'll see you next Wednesday.
See you next week.
Da-na-na-na-na-na.